And good morning. I'm less muted. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Unhindered by Coding. I'm Nick McPhee. We're going to program for a while. Hey, Asitsu. Nice to see you again. And thanks to all the folks that just followed. It's like this little cluster of people, which is very cool. So we'll be here for 2 hours doing programming. Currently working in Rust using the YEW framework to build a web app to batch archive GitHub repos. And I think we're like approaching, I feel like I can see some light at the end of a tunnel in the far distance. Like, I kind of feel like I can see it finishing at some point here, not today, but maybe in October, which would be kind of cool. It's been a neat project, but it's also taken quite a while, partly because I don't really know anything about React, which this is based on, and I'd never used Vue, and I'd never done anything big in Rust when I started this, so there was a lot to learn, and you folks have been awesome. We would never have gotten this far without your help. As was discussed on Tuesday when we last streamed on this project, one of the questions that came up was how to handle OAuth authentication, because it looked like I was going to need some kind of server infrastructure. Well, there were several options, but, actually, let's see. I've got a slide from Tuesday that went over the different options. So these seem to be the key options. We could make this a GitHub app, so it would be kind of inside the GitHub ecosystem. I didn't really want to do that. I think that makes it less flexible for the user. So I would be trading convenience on my end for inconvenience on the user end, and that didn't seem like a great deal. We could try the device flow option in GitHub OAuth, but that, I think, if I am reading the docs correctly, would be limited to 50 submissions per hour. And that's not going to be good because every archive event is going to have to be its own submission. Plus, there are going to be some submissions to get the information about the organization and blah, blah, blah. And so we're just not going to be able to do what I want to do with a number of the organizations that I at least care about with only 50 submissions per hour. And so Asitsu actually proposed using Cloudflare workers, and actually this really should say workers here. That would be more helpful. Oops, no, stop it. I'm not trying to do a slideshow here, peeps. With Cloudflare workers. And the worker would provide a really lightweight server. And Cloudflare gives you up to 100,000 requests per hour, which would easily be enough. I mean, if so many people start using this that I run into a 100K per hour limit, that would be totally shocking. Like, it's really hard to imagine that there are the sort of many millions of repositories waiting to be archived in batches that would have to exist for people to all start to do this at the same time and hit 100K per hour limit. It just, I can't imagine that being an issue. And if it is, right, that's the good problem to have, and deal with it if it were to come up. So I think that's probably the way to go of the options that I've heard. And several of these were suggestions from people on Twitter or on the Discord. And see, Twitter is just at Nick McPhee, and the Discord is the that's the invite link to the Discord in the QR code, and I can also stick that, invite people, grab, oh, stop it, computer, trackpad being sticky, invite people, copy, so that'll get you into the Discord. And so that's been where most of this conversation's happened. And so if you've got another idea, absolutely share. That would be awesome. But I am kind of leaning toward the Cloudflare thing. I've made an account and played around with Cloudflare a little bit and doing some stuff in Rust with Cloudflare. We could come to that today. But that's probably not my inclination, although we can talk about that in a second. But it seems doable. Like, I got it all up and working, and I can create a simple worker and do some hello world kind of stuff. And it wasn't that hard, and the Rust support seems reasonable. So, yeah, it seems like a thing. And then I get to learn another technology, right? And the ultimate goal of this whole year programming thing is for me to learn stuff this year while I'm on sabbatical. And so learning a different cloud infrastructure, or a piece of a different cloud infrastructure. I've never used Cloudflare for anything, and I've never used Cloudflare workers for anything. I've used AWS Lambda. And it's clear that Cloudflare workers aren't meant to be exactly the same thing, because they're really requiring that your workers be quite lightweight, and that nothing takes very long. I don't remember the exact limit, but it's, a worker is not allowed to run more than a matter of, I think, 10 or 15 seconds or something like that. And then they're going to nuke it. So they're really looking for you to use workers as very lightweight pieces of code, which is great for this operation because we really just need to do a little token management. And so that'll work swell for this. Doesn't work for some other cloud things that I've been thinking about, but that's fine, right? I mean, there are lots of tools in the world, and get to learn a new one. And I've never used Rust in a cloud environment. So the AWS Lambda work I've done was in JavaScript, and I think I did a little Python once. But I've never used Rust in a cloud environment like this. So that's a cool thing to learn. So my inclination today is, actually I should move this over here, it'll be less noisy. I'm sorry I'm froggy. I'm hay fever and early in the morning and yada, 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 and you don't really care. So here's the current ice-repos app. So we put an organization in, hit submit, we get a list of all these pages, and there's a huge number of pages because I currently have the page size being only 3, and that's just for debugging and kind of understanding that the page display is working correctly and the state management is working correctly. It was easier to do with small pages. We'll have to set it probably just back to the default 30 downstream, but this is it'll do for now. And then we added last week on Tuesday, I think, this review and submit button, and this works, but the user experience is a little weird, which you can see so there's, I think, 55. Whoa, that was weird. There's 55 repositories here, I think, something like that. And if we just let's say we go through and we look at the first couple of pages. So we've now seen 6 repos, 3 on this page and 3 on page 2. We've selected 2, Actually, let's select this lab 0 intro and lab 1 Eric Johannes. So these are, we've only seen these 6 and we've selected 2. And if we say review and submit, we only get those 2. So we haven't seen any of the other pages, so nothing else shows up here. Even if we had maybe intended to archive most of the other pages, since we didn't look at them, they're not here. So that's one thing that's a little odd, perhaps. It's not, I think, insanely weird, but it is definitely odd. And the other thing, which I think violates the principle of least amazement with enthusiasm, is that if we uncheck something here, it just disappears. Because we're displaying all the checked archives, and when we uncheck it, it's no longer a checked archive. So it simply isn't displayed. And there's now no way to come back, bring it back. And to be able to bring it back, we basically going to have to make a copy of all the archived states for these guys. And that seems kind of gross. The suggestion that, so Azitsu made a suggestion that I think is interesting and that I think is what I would like to pursue today, is I think I would like to pursue a different user interface for the pagination. Instead of having all the numbers here, which normally it would be a much smaller set of numbers, but because we would have longer pages. But instead of having all these numbers here, simply have a previous and next button at the top. Initially, the prev button, of course, would be disabled, and the next button would take you from 1 to 2. And now once we're at 2, both prev and next would be enabled to go either back to 1 or forward to 3. But you could only go linearly through the list. And you would not have the review and submit button, until you get to the end. So when you get to the last page, prev will still be there and take you to the previous page, 18 in this case. But next would change to be review and submit. So when you get to the end, then you can go to review and submit, but you can't go there sooner than that. And that would ensure that you've gone through all of the pages before you get there. I don't know if that's going to be seen as burdensome by the user. Maybe there's somebody who just literally wants to archive everything and not actually have to look at stuff. But given that there is no way to unarchive through the web, through the API, through the REST interface, archiving probably should be seen as a pretty serious action. It is undoable through the web interface, but if you archived 50 repos and then you realized you didn't mean to, unarchiving them would have to happen through the web interface one at a time, and it would take you an hour or two, depending on how fast you were and how focused you could stay. But I think a minimum an hour. I mean, 50, that's like a little over a minute a piece. And it would be a tedious, unpleasant hour, right? You would not want to have to do that if you could avoid it. So I think being a little aggressive about, you really should look at these, and you should, and if there's only like 3 or 4 pages, which is going to be the norm, I think, if you really want to just archive everything and not think about it, you could just be like, next, review and submit. Like, it wouldn't be that hard. So I kind of like that interface design. Now, the other piece is what to do about the fact that things disappear when you click them. And again, as Azitsu suggested, simply not allowing them to uncheck here in sort of a simple way. Like, don't support the whole check uncheck here, but which is one option. And if we went that route, and Izitz's idea was basically to push people back into this interface if they want to uncheck something. And so one way we could do that is, instead of having, let's, if we go back and let's add a guy here. If we want to uncheck this, then instead of having an uncheck here, you could have something like a button link kind of thing that's like revisit this repository or some language like that. And you would click that, and that would take you back to the page that has that repository in it. And maybe in a perfect world, even like scrolled so that that repository was sitting at the top. I haven't thought about that until just now, and I don't know how hard that would be. Going back to the page it comes from shouldn't be that hard. I have no idea about the scrolling. I'd have to look at my component library, and I haven't thought about that. So in theory, it's entirely possible. In practice, I have no idea how hard that would be. But so we could have, like, revisit this repository. It would take you back to that page. So if we click that here, we would come back to this page. And it would be nice to scroll or highlight or in some way indicate oh, I hadn't thought about that. So Isitsu's idea in the chat is to just not have this re-render if we click things. So let me I want to look at the code for review and submit. So review and submit has the repository cards, and they have the on checkbox change, which is updates the ArchiveStateMap, and that causes the re-render on the review and submit component. And that's what causes the card to disappear. Actually, really? Hang on. Why does... get repos to archive must filter. Yeah, I'm sure get repos to archive filters, so we only get maps or archives that are set to be archived. So this re-rendering recalls get repos to archive. That's using the new updated ArchiveStateMap, and that's why the things disappear. And if we still need something to happen. We need some record of the checkbox being unchecked and possibly rechecked. And that could, instead of modifying the ArchiveStateMap, actually just keep track of a separate map of IDs to booleans that's particular, a specific state to the review and submit, and then our display would be something about the local state, if there is one, or the global state if there is no local state. I would still redraw though, because that would just change the state. And I must say, I like the idea, if we could stay here in this component, that would be kind of nice. Because I think users, like you've got these checkboxes, it would be nice to just be able to check stuff and move on, and not have to hop back, especially if you're like scrolling down through and you're like, oh yeah, let's undo this one. And then we're like, oh, you've got to go back to the other interface and you'll have to come back here and remember where you were. I don't think that's going to be super popular. So, I mean, maybe the simplest thing to do is essentially have a local state that's a clone of, no, because we don't want all the stuff they'd unchecked earlier. Well, we can start by just cloning, by copying over the contents of ArchiveStateMap that were marked as to archive, and that could be the base display, and that's what we would loop over down here, and we could build the display around that. Kind of think that actually wouldn't be a bad plan. And then it'll redraw, but it'll be redrawing off of a different state, and that seems like that would be a fine thing. So then thinking about the order of events for the day, I think there are two things to do before we even get to Cloudflare workers and OAuth. I think there's turning this into the next prev thing, and there's the changes we've talked about for the submit and review component. And since the submit and review component is, well, we're in that branch. Where is, oh, do I not have, I don't think I have Get Kraken open. Well, that's annoying. I think we're in a branch, so I think we can see that here. Yeah, we're in implement, review, and submit already. So rather than kind of put this branch on ice for a second and go back and do the next prev thing, I'd be inclined to try to get this to be in a happy place. And so I think figuring out how to manage the state here and then put some simple, header stuff around it would, although the header stuff might actually want to be in a different branch, because I think the header stuff really probably is stuff that should be components outside of the component we're building. I think that the component we're building really should probably just be this plus the I'm done button, which probably ought to be at the bottom. And thinking about it, if we have long, oops, no, I wanted to go here and go back. If we have long pages, the pagination should probably be repeated at the top and the bottom. Because if I get to the bottom of this page, it'd be nice to be able to click next without having to scroll back up to the top. But it might make sense to have it at the top as well. But I don't know, maybe just the bottom. Yeah. So I think my inclination is to focus on the review and submit thing and see if we can get that to be in a happy place. And then we'll worry about the header footer business and all of that. So currently we depend entirely on the ArchiveStateMap. Now I think if we have this use store here, then if this ever changes, but it won't, so I don't think that's a worry. I think we just want to make basically a copy of this that has only the archives that we care about, the things that are initially marked as being to archive. And we don't even need repository card. Yeah, we need the whole repositories to send to the card. And so actually copying elements from the entire ArchiveStateMap might be the simplest way to do this. It feels kind of brutish. I don't know that I like it, but if we have a local state that's a copy of a subset of the ArchiveStateMap, then everything can then act on that. And that seems like might be our simplest bet. So if we say let review state map be archive state map dot, and then if I imagine repos to get repos to archive exists. How about if I say submap to archive? And that won't be that thing. That will be, I need to make a state. So I want to use state, and that's going to take a closure and return the ArchiveStateMap thingamadoogie. And this is failing because of course that doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and add that. And ArchiveStateMap is over here. Pub fun. And I called it submap to archive. I'm terrible at names, so definitely holler if you see a better name. So this is going to return a new ArchiveStateMap. So it will return a self. So we need a new ArchiveStateMap. Oh, and actually I don't even have a new anywhere because I think we just always rely on the default. Huh. Okay. Well, that's a thing. So I'm going to need to have a new B tree map. And going to need to iterate across the entries in the self.treemap dot into iter. You know, I thought about adding another bool. So, yeah, like we could totally, like right now we've got repository and a bool, and this bool represents the user's intention during the pagination review process. We could add a second boolean here, which is their intention in the review process. I really, I find that annoying. So it seems error prone because there's now two booleans that mean, so they're both booleans, so the type system's going to never know the difference between them. If we use one instead of the other, type system will be like, well, I don't care, they're booleans. They're, at the moment, they're not even named. We could fix that. But right now, they're just booleans. They just come out as part of a tuple. So there's no naming structure to enforce anything. One of them is only used in the review process, but it's hanging around for all the other stuff. So through the whole pagination business, it's sitting there being some default value, probably false or something, I don't know, and only get set to, or maybe you have to set both of them every time you change something in the pagination process. That seems annoying, and again, potentially error prone. It just, there's something very duplicate about it that I find problematic mentally. And while this kind of making a copy of another map also is clearly annoying, and we're explicitly duplicating data, at least we're being explicit about what we're duplicating and why we're duplicating it. My naming could make that clearer probably, but I just feel like this is less error prone and more, the intent is somehow clearer that there's going to be two of these, rather than have an extra boolean. You're like, why is that there? What is that doing? Oh, that's used in this place over here that I didn't even think about yet. So I'm going to go with making copies of things, but I totally appreciate the thought. I think that it did absolutely occur to me that could be sort of a way to do things, but I kind of think I'm going to go with this. Oh no, that's more interesting. Oh, that I like, actually, because now the type system can help us, and if we name things sensibly. I kind of, that's actually, that's appealing a lot. Let me, I'm gonna actually get rid of this for a hot sec, so we don't get a bunch of compilation noise. So yeah, so I'd been thinking about making a type for this anyway, um, giving a name to this and giving a name to that, because having just these raw types in these things was seemed irksome, um, and the kind of thing that at least I would find confusing. Um, so an enum actually makes just a ton of sense, because now we've got a named type and we can have the values that we care about. So pub enum archive state, and we could have already archived, and that's a new state. We were using essentially true as the state there. Oh, there's also going to have to be some kind of mapping from the JSON we get from GitHub to this new enum. So we're probably going to need to implement a from trait somewhere about that, but we can get to that in a second. Because I suspect if we replace this bool with this thing, a lot of compilation stuff will break, and if we trace that through, we'll eventually run into, I think, the problem where the Ceridae is mapping from the JSON to our... Oh, actually, that's in our repository structure. Oh, so maybe we don't need already archived, because maybe that's... Yeah, maybe that's already here, and we don't need to keep track of it here. And at the moment, we only put things in this map that have not already been archived. We're only keeping track of things that we might change, and if it's already archived. So okay, I think I don't need that. So I don't need that. So I have the initial two booleans, which is like I don't know, to archive and to not archive. Those sound like terrible names. And in some sense, this is actually desired archive state, but I've already used that. Well, I don't like these names, but to archive would be kind of like true, and do not archive would be false. And then we're going to need two more states, which are review, like to archive after review, and do not archive after review. That seems kind of weird. Is maybe something like that better, where this boolean indicates whether we've reviewed or not? Does that make sense? Does that solve our problem? Or alternatively, it could look like not reviewed bool and reviewed bool. So we'd lose these two. And that the boolean now indicates whether it wants to be archived or not. I don't like that as much. I do kind of prefer the to archive, do not archive. And then I guess actually, really linguistically, it would be archive and do not archive. So archive, skip, and reviewed, where the latter two represent do not archive. So skip and reviewed would be set so archive actually I guess I would have read that as being the first and the last. Oh, archive and skip are set from the paginator. Review is used when unchecked on the review screen. I see. So review and skip would come through to the so when we're on the review page, everything's either archive or skip. And if I uncheck a box, it doesn't go from archive to skip, it goes from archive to review in the paginator, and will display anything that's archive or review in the paginator. But we won't, in the review page, but we won't display anything that's skip in the review page because we had chosen to not archive it earlier, and we'll just leave it out. Okay. That, because I kind of was thinking that there was a 3 value option that ought to work, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So I like this. And it's better than my weird, like, 4 value 2-axis Cartesian product nonsense, which I was not happy about. So thank you for saving the day. So we can have archive. So we can have skip. So that's, and can we do like things? Yeah, I think we can. So I've never used the 3 slash thing and looked at what that does. I've not really gotten into the documentation side of things, but I've seen it used. So and I assume it gets auto picked up by some tool and put into some kind of documentation somewhere if you run the right something. Gotcha. Yes, which at the moment would mostly just be a long list of methods because I haven't done documentation like this really anywhere. But I should probably start. And I'm at the beginning, I wasn't sure I even understood the structure of the project well enough to like that documenting it made a great deal of sense. But I'm kind of feeling like it's starting to come together, and that here being clear about what I mean by these things seems to be important. So okay, and oops. So that's skip. We have chosen in the pagination view to archive this repository. So that'll be archive. And then the last one is we have changed from to archive to don't archive in the review view. And you had proposed review there. Reviewed almost sounds like, to me, that if reviewed is true and there's no other information, it almost sounds like approval. Like, we've reviewed this and it looks good, as opposed to we changed our mind, which is really what this is sort of saying. I mean, so another option would be to have this be reviewed no, this can't be the same. I was going to have this be the same in both places, but that's not going to work, because we basically don't want to bring anything that was skipped into the review page. So it is really that this needs to be some another name for skipped. I mean, it could be skipped in review. I don't know. That's a lot better. It's sort of long. But then it's clear that archive means we're going to archive it, and then the two skips are both we're not archiving it. And we just indicate when it happened. So this was skipped initially, and this was skipped in review. That's a possibility. I can learn to live with that for now. And if somebody comes up with a better name, shout, because naming's not my strong suit. And so then this is going to become ArchiveState. And that's going to blow a whole bunch of stuff up, and we're going to go find out what that blows up. Well, for starters, it blows that up. ArchiveState doesn't implement debug. Well, we better derive debug. And I assume that the hash derive thing goes after the 3/ comment. I don't know that for sure, but we're going to need some other stuff. Oh, we need clone, and we're going to need partial eq, and eek. Okay. Debug, clone, partial, eek, and eek. And do you have to have both partial eek and eek? Yeah, probably. Because partial eek gives you less than, and eek I don't think does give you less than. Okay, so that took care of that problem. Now, what else is broken? Oh, hey. Yeah, so let's see. Repository right here. So we're returning an option bool, and that's not going to be a bool anymore. That's going to be a archive state. And then this is going to be, we're setting something to be this boolean, and that boolean's now going to need to be a archive state. It's going to break whatever calls it. And oh, we don't implement display, but we can do that because we do implement debug. Okay. Oh, so update desired state, but if I may want to use this same method in the review thing and be able to send SkippedInReview as the new state here. Because this is the kind of thing we're going to use, I think. I don't know, where does this get called? References gets called in, yeah, so it is being called in review and submit. So I think we want it to be able to take so you think that we are going to want a second method. Why do we want a second method? Why can't I just send in one of these values here and update the state accordingly? Because I'm going to want to update the state. I mean, we do have a get desired. Oh, you're up here. Oh, and so you're thinking this could be option bool. I'm with you. Yeah. Because if this returns a boolean, we can use it to display things. Where is this called? So we call it in repository list, presumably to decide whether to display something, a checkbox, and this is also going to be a checkbox. So having that return a boolean does make a lot of sense here. So we can take this back to a bool, and now we're going to have to have something that converts whoop, go away. Do we have to have a separate one? Oh, I see. So actually, let's go back to where we look at where we called this. So yeah, I think I see what you're saying. So in the paginator universe, we only display things if, oh no, we're using this. Okay, yes. In one of these, we'll always be using either skip or archive. So in the paginator, everything will be skip or archive. And then in review and submit, everything's going to be archive or skipped in review. Do we need a separate thing then? Or can we just say that if it's true, if it's archive, and it's false if it's skip or skip in review? And then I think we can get away with just a single thing. Yeah, I think so. I think that would be, because we're only using it to display the state of the checkbox. But when we loop, I don't think we use, that's happening in get repos to archive. So I think that's here. So this is where we might need two things. Because this doesn't, and notice the then sum goes all whiffly, because this is no longer a boolean. So I think this is actually where we have the two different ways of viewing things. I think here we can get away with just a match against skipped or other things. Like I think we could do match archive state equals P1, and if it's archive, that's not the right syntax, is it? Or, yeah, I think it is. Then will be true, otherwise will be false. I think that will, oh, hang on. That's got to be, P is a thing here. So that really needs to be repo and archive state. Oh no, hang on, but I had P1 there. But this is better anyway. And then it should just be this. Yeah, okay. Getting my syntax straight. Now, so I think one of the things I've learned is that when in doubt, if you find yourself doing an explicit match, you should ask, is there a nifty way to avoid that? I guess we could do a from thing that makes a boolean from an archive state, and then we wouldn't need this match, although the match would move into the from. And at the moment, we don't have a second place where we need this. And if we don't have oh, that's, yeah. So that would be over, no, that is here. So you could have a method on the enum. Would you have a method on the enum as opposed to a from? I mean, I feel like we are going from a desired archive state to a boolean. and then if we did from, then anywhere that needed a boolean and had a from archive, sorry, where am I? Oh, here we are. Had an archive state needed a boolean. Yeah, I guess, I mean, but there is the risk that we thought we needed a boolean, or we didn't, maybe. Yeah. So I'm actually just going to leave this match here for now. If I find myself making a second one, then maybe that will tell me what I really wanted. But if this is the only place where we ever match against ArchiveState, then maybe I don't care. And this actually could be underscore. Not that that's the key issue at the moment. Now, here we have a problem. So then some only makes sense for Boolean, and as you've said, Izitsu, we are gonna need two things here. So we're gonna need one for pagination. Actually, okay, let's go look at where this gets called. Let me understand what I'm doing with this. Oh, it only gets called in one place and only in review and submit. Oh, so actually, we don't need two of them. We just need this to be we only want the repos that where this value is not skip or is archive. So in fact, can we just do use the matches macro? Don't know the matches macro. I think I've probably used it, but Rust matches macro matches. So we take a value and a pattern, and that returns a Boolean. So we would be able to say matches bang to archive. I guess that's right there. Archive. And there's probably a close there. And no, something's unhappy, and I think it's about an option. Oh, I see. Yeah. Because we need to convert it to a repository. Now, and by negating no, we wouldn't. You've got us matching skip, but don't we want we want the true value, which would be not skip. Yeah. So this would be not matches. I must say, I think one mistake that somebody's made in the design of Rust, which you're just never going to undo now, using bang for negation and bang for all the macros is really not great. Like bang matches bang. That's just like, what in the world? And those two exclamation marks mean totally different things. And their meaning is purely dependent on their position. I think they really should have used another piece of syntax for one of those or the other. I don't care which, but yeah. So I was wondering, can we just say if to archive not equal, or actually I think I can just say to archive equal archive dot then some repo. Does that work? Oh, but I need the thing in front of it, don't I? ArchiveState. And then, yeah, right. And now we've gotten kind of long. And then we could amuse ourselves by doing that. Yeah. Oh, no, it didn't like that. Can't compare. Oh, really? Well, so since this is being called, yeah, you're right. Actually, no, you're completely right. Skip. And then this is grumpy because we got a ref on the left. And so if I just star this, I don't have a ref and everything's good. Yeah. Yeah. So this name is now probably wrong. Because if we look at where it gets used, it's getting used anytime we display the review list. So really this is probably get repos to review. Rename symbol, get repos to review. And then it makes sense that we'll skip anybody that says to skip. But then anything that's either ArchiveState or what do I call it? SkippedInReview, we will continue to review because we could decide we want to come back. So I think that actually makes sense as a name. And now it says we've got an error on line 61. Oh, right here. So yeah, when we build up the initial archive map, we start with true here, and we actually want that to be archive state archive. So we want the default state to be that we want to archive things. And that fixes everything in this file. Now we need to go over to repository paginator and see what we broke. Actually, I'm going to go to review and submit and see what we broke. What did we break here? Right here. So this desired archive state is we expected an archive state, but we found a boolean, which means this is now, oh, here we go. This is a boolean. Because desired archive state has booleans there. So we need to find desired archive state. I think that's in here. Nope, I mean in here. Yeah, so desired archive state is a archive state from review state method. So I'm not sure I'm following the suggestion. So you're proposing a method that if it's in archive state, we're constructing a desired archive state from a review state. So we'd be taking a boolean and constructing one of these, if I'm understanding correctly. And so the boolean would take us to archive for true and skip for false. Is that what you're suggesting? So we would impl from bool for archive state fn from b bool to self and true archive false skip. Oh, so you're thinking having a name, having the name have the method name have clarity about what we're converting from, so we don't convert, we're less likely to convert an arbitrary boolean without realizing what we've done or why we've done it. That makes sense. I get that. Okay. So now we're not doing this. We're just implementing archive state, and we're from review state. It takes a boolean and returns a self, and this needs to be self : and this needs to be self : right? Yeah. Okay. And then over here I can say from review state, because I'm calling it here. You're right. This would take the boolean and return it into SkippedInReview. Thank you. Good catch. So actually, I'm going to make a note here. Convert a boolean, essentially the toggle state of a checkbox, in the review and submit component, and convert it into a ArchiveState. And so if we uncheck the box, it should convert us into SkippedInReview. And if we recheck the box, it should get us back to archive. Coolio. Good. Then back here, this then needs to call that method. Now, did I really want it to be a method here? Because I'm going to have to call archive. Oh, but maybe I do want that. State. From review state. Oops. Do we think that? Yeah, right. You were saying that earlier, and I wasn't seeing far enough ahead to sort of get where you were coming from. But yeah, I get that now, that we'll need to convert booleans in the toggle to the right desired archive state, or the right archive state, and that what that does is going to depend on the context. When we're in the paginator, we'll need it to do SkippedInReview, and when we're in the review and submit, we'll need it to be SkippedInReview. When we're in the paginator, we'll need it to be in to just be skip. So we could actually, while we're here, do this. They'll be almost identical in the paginator component, and convert it into an archive state, and this will just be skip. And we need from paginator state. Yeah. So in the paginator, we want to use the skip state to indicate that we do not want to see this archive in the review phase. In the review, we want to use the SkippedInReview to indicate that we do want to continue to see this archive in the review phase. Yeah. Okay. Now, and then where to be here? Oh, I wanted to be here, actually. I want to try to get this resolved. I probably just need to import this. Yeah. So I guess for those out there, should these be methods? Is that the right thing here, or should this just be functions? If they're functions, then when I call them here, I don't have that piece. I think I want them to be methods, because I don't really want to. Yeah, because I think then it makes it clear we're taking from what to what. So having this as part of the syntax indicates the target type. Oh. So they're only methods if it's a struct, and they're associated types if it's an enum? And I think they're only, even if it's a struct, they're only methods if they take self or a reference to self as, yeah. And since these don't take, and I guess an enum could take a self as a first argument. Yeah, I don't think there's a reason that couldn't be true. Okay, so you're right. I get it. They're technically associated functions. Good catch. Thank you. But I think that I like having this because it makes it clear what our target type is. Otherwise, from review state, we're saying we're going from something, but where are we going to? And here, this makes it clear where we're going. We're going to an archive state. So I like having that syntax there. That makes sense to me. And why is this grumpy? Oh, because I made it private, because I'm a doofus. And so both of these will eventually need to be public. And does that make that happy? Yes, it does. Very exciting. Now we actually only have one compiler error. Now I suspect we might get more as we fix the one. Oh, maybe not. Because this is actually the same problem, right? Update desired state. So this is where we would just call the other from here. So we'll have to do some importing, but archive. Actually, I'm going to do ArchiveState : from paginator state, because we're in the paginator. And then boom, bop, bibbly bibbly. And that compiles. And everything compiles. Shocking. Now, do I think it works? It feels this is like too easy. I feel like review and submit's gonna need something. Maybe not though, because this is just going to give us the ones that aren't skip, and this is going to give us the right checkbox state. Maybe it works. Wow, that would be weird. Everything compiles. It's a bunch of warnings. We'll have to look at those, but 01 S20. Thank you. Okay. Let's. Oh, we broke something. No. Okay, that was weird. Oh, that's not good. Yeah. So okay, let me reload, and because you're not sure, you probably don't know for sure what I'm clicking on, so it's hard for you to see what the problem is. But so I click on this checkbox here, and nothing happens. That was weird. Then I clicked on this one on the bottom, nothing happened. Then I came back up here and clicked, and that one went away. Okay. Click down here, that one went away. Clicked up here, they both came back. So something is not good. And I don't suspect that anything in our console is going to tell us anything useful. Updating something to skip. And I'm not sure I trust these printouts because we've had issues in the past. But the fact that the checkboxes didn't do the right thing is definitely worrying. So let's actually go look at our code. And this is in the paginator, so we haven't even gotten to the question of the yeah, we haven't even gotten to the question of the review and submit business yet. So the paginator calls repository list with a copy of the repository paginator state and the onCheckbox change. And the onCheckbox change is defined here. So the desired state has the ID and the desired state, and we're modifying the ArchiveStateMap by calling update desired state and archive state from paginator state, desired archive state. So this not do the right thing somehow. Actually, let's just follow the whole process of checking the box on the card and seeing what happens, because we really don't need that, I don't think. We don't really need that, so let's close those two. And this doesn't do a whole lot for us right now. Repository card. Okay, oops, go away. So, repository card displays using desired archive state.unwrap, and desired archive state is here. We're passing that in when we construct the card. So that's initially correct. So we'll just assume that we're good there. Although that could be the problem. We'll have to think about that. And, actually, do archive, okay, they're coming out okay. That's interesting. And so when we click the checkbox, onClick gets called. And onClick is coming in as, oh no, onClick is defined here. So we have the repository ID, onCheckbox change is being sent in, and that's our callback that we're doing the emit with in a second. So we find the thing and figure out whether it's checked or not. Oh. But when I click it, it doesn't uncheck. I wonder if this is part of the problem. If we come back here, I clicked it once, I clicked it twice, and it worked the second time. Clicked it again and it's back. Clicked it twice and it's still there. Are we going through both versions of checked somehow? But no, we have two versions of skip. That's so weird. So we find the state, but if the state's wrong, if we're reading from the checkbox and the checkbox doesn't have the right state, is it redrawing and overwriting what we've done somehow? And so we log what the desired state is, and then we emit the ID and the desired state. So let's go have a look at that log message. I think I trust that log message, I hope. Let's reload. So we start with a clean slate. And develop JavaScript console. Okay. Now, if I click this, the desired state is false. So we're updating a particular thing to skip, which it does say skip here. And then we still say skip here. So it's like this isn't being displayed correctly when the value is skip. And if I click this again, what happens? Desired state is false. We're updating to skip, and it is skip. And now it's right. So it's like the component didn't redraw anymore. Why would that be? And that would explain, actually, if we reload, that would explain why if I click this, and now it should be skip, and I click this, and this should be skip, and so I should have skip, archive, skip, and if I click and somehow a second thing forces a redraw, oh, it didn't actually redraw this. Skip, archive, skip. So for some reason this didn't redraw. And if I down here, well, now I've still got two skips, but they both have check marks. Oh, what is going on? So, am I not redrawing? What am I not re-rendering? And why? So the card should redraw because this ought to change. presumably when I do the admit, this ought to be updated by the repository list. Well, actually, so this emit goes all the way back to paginator, because paginator gets on checkbox change and just passes it through. So it's this paginator, this on checkbox change, that does whatever work happens. So we get the desired archive state, and that's going to be an ID and a boolean. And we are going to update the state map with that ID and an archive state value from the desired archive state. That's all correct. And that should force this to redraw because it's using this. It's got a dependency on this archive state map. And that should force the paginator list to redraw. Repository pagination state, repositories clone. Oh, does repository list not depend on the archive state map? Repository list. No, it does, because it calls use store. And so it should get the desired state. Is this broken? Get desired state. So if the desired state is archive. Oh, hang on. This is a typo. Why does this compile? Actually, because am I just making up a new name here and it's letting me do that? Oh, that's weird. So if we'd gotten through all the warnings, we would have figured this out. Well, I don't need two of them. Okay. So this was actually always returning false, I think. That's weird. Okay. Oh. And actually almost all the warnings went away. There's only one. There's a warning about an unused import. That's the only warning left. So maybe that was the important thing. Submit. I'm going to close this because this is just in the way. Ho-ho! That looks better. So now let's keep lab 0, and we'll keep both of those, and we'll keep Ben G, Jake P. Hey, okay. Now, Look at that. It does things. Things don't disappear. That's awesome. Okay. That is spiffy. I think we actually got that to do a thing. Whew. So that's weird. Like this is a place where in some sense Rust failed me, because I would have expected Rust in its aggressive type checkeriness to have said, I just can't put archive there. And it was like, I don't have a problem with that. What did it even think that was? If I put that there, pattern binding archive is named the same as one of the various type ArchiveState. Unused variable. So it thinks it's just a variable. And it's with a bad name. Sorry. Thanks for noticing. And I did have to fix numerous places where I didn't have the ArchiveState : but I just missed this one. And it's interesting that it thinks that's a variable. And so it was I think it was it always matching? And then we were getting true? Actually, I really don't quite understand what was happening there. To be honest with you. I have to look up sort of what it means to put a variable here. Maybe. So, you think there's maybe a Clippy warning? Rust, Clippy, variable in match. No, that doesn't look the right thing, and it doesn't look like it even compiles. Variable declared in match pattern. Rewrite shadow lens. So let's see, Rust, Clippy, shadow. Oh, you think it was telling us? Oops. Right at the very top, warn bindings variant name. So we do have that as a warning. So I guess the question is, should that be a stronger than a warning, or not? Because it turns out, like, so if we leave this like this, and let's go to here. Hello. We get. Come on, there we go. So we get this one, which I just need to take care of. But associated with this use of archive, we do get 3 warnings. I just didn't look at them. So Clippy was trying to tell us something. It just was letting me shoot myself in the foot instead of saying, no, you can't. And so the first was trying to match on a variant. So this was telling me that I had left out the ArchiveState : part. And then this is interesting. This is telling me I'm reaching an unreachable pattern because this is a variable, so it's matching anything. So this is just becoming a variable whose name is the value in the match. But this is then never being used on the right hand side, because of course that variable isn't being used. We're just saying true, and it didn't like the name. So it was really trying very hard to tell me things. I think I just saw them as warnings and not as errors. And the first one was this import. So I just sort of figured there were probably a bunch of imports. And I didn't look at it carefully. And I allowed myself to just like blow past this when this was very clearly telling me what I needed to know. So really blaming the compiler, not the right answer here. The compiler was totally telling me what I needed to know. I wonder if there's even this quick fix. Boom. Yeah, it would even do that. Yeah. So I think I could. I think that here, like this is turning this into a warning, whereas normally it wouldn't be anything. And I think I could take that. So let's find out, actually. If we take this back out so we see what the fussy bit was. It was bindings with variant name. And if I go back up, stop up here. So that's what we have. Oops. And I think if I turn this into error, is that right? No. There is syntax. Oh, deny. There, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Deny. Now I think this fails to compile, and indeed it does. So if we come over here, we get an error, and we get that this is not a warning. This is a no, you cannot do this. And since I have made this mistake repeatedly, maybe turning this into a error for me is not a bad idea. Now I think, like, I've actually just repeated these over and over and over again, but I kind of think that if I put them in lib or mod, they might get picked up by the other places and I don't have to repeat them everywhere. Let us explore this. And I'm wrong. So this now does not. Where was it? Oh, right here. This is now turned back into a warning. I had thought that this would like propagate across these guys, but apparently it doesn't. Oh, just put it in lib. So you're right. And now this fails to compile. So this turns into a, you can't even do that. So if I put these in lib, they go everywhere, which means I ought to be able to remove them from all of these places, which would be kind of nice, because I am repeating them over and over again. And now that we just added one, being able to do that in place would be a win. And yeah, I think I didn't realize that you could put them somewhere higher up and they would propagate down. And then I saw something that suggested that was possible. Obviously didn't remember how to make it work. and where to put it. But okay. So now everything compiles except for this, and that's because we still have this problem, and we can quick fix our way out of that. And now everything compiles again. Oh, repository wasn't under mod. Duh. Mod was just the components. And repository is under lib. Sure. So if I wanted to do something that only applied to the components, I still could put it in the mod, and I would have been okay. But because repository wasn't in the mod, it didn't have any effect when I put it there. Yeah. Good catch. Thank you. Thank you. So the last unused import, last warning, is in review and submit. And it's just we don't call use state anymore. Oh, because we added it when I was thinking of doing this, and I ended up not doing that. So this goes away because I think we have the better. Oh, come on. My trackpad's being all sticky today. The better idea of having the enum. And I do really like that enum. I think that was a really nice refactoring, and I think that's a lot cleaner. So I'm very happy with that. Yay! So that actually takes care of this to do, and I think is a better solution. The other to-dos are not resolved, but it's 11:55, and I think that's a good time to quit. So I'll need to commit. I think that's going to take a while because we made, oops, I'm in the wrong ice-repos. Too many projects. Yeah, because I did all that, all of this stuff, which probably should be its own commit, separate from these other things. And so really, actually, not that much code changed. Most of it was in repository.rs, where we added the new ArchiveState type and the two from methods, and had to update quite a few places where we referred to that. I need to do more commenting. I think now that I feel like I kind of understand what's happening, I need to, and I really would like to come back and write tests. Like I figure out how to do that in testing components and testing, because everything depends on these little global states, and so the test, it's not obvious to me how to do some of the testing. And there are some examples like in the U repository, and they're the sort of sample U app that does the bloggy thing. And I should just do some homework, which I have not done. Because I think there are places where some of this logic really probably ought to be tested. But it does seem to work, so I'm happy about that. And actually that refactoring was not that bad. Once I kind of understood the idea here, and I clearly got bogged down in that. And then once I finally understood what you meant by the two froms, which took me a little while, the actual pushing the change out was pretty straightforward. The compiler errors kind of guided me to the right places. And with the exception of this mistake here, fixing those things was generally pretty straightforward. So it wasn't that bad. Okay, well, that was awesome. I'm actually very happy with that. I think that solved an important problem, and I think did so in a way that I like. I like the new enum. I think that's a good solution to this problem. And I think we're in a pretty good place now. There's some cleanup around it that needs to be done. But I think actually on Tuesday morning when we come back to this, we might be in the neighborhood of doing OAuth. Maybe not. Maybe the first thing to do would be to add the basic logic that would, so add the big like archive things button to this. Whoa, you're blank. Why are you blank? What happened? Blur? That's weird. Work? Yeah, well, I don't know what happened there. Oh, we still need to do the prev next stuff. So yeah, I think we probably still have to do the prev next stuff, and then when we get to the review and submit, there needs to be a big like archive button, and I want to actually confirm that the right archives are being read as to archive before we actually start hitting GitHub, because this is where it gets weird, is that unless I can mock the HTTP requests and responses, we get to a point where the only thing to do is to actually send requests to GitHub, which will actually archive repositories. And that's a pretty drastic step, and you'd want to not do that until you really knew things were working correctly. And I might actually, this is in the README actually for the repository. I might actually do some integration level tests with end-to-end tests with Cypress, but do so in a way that mocks the back end, so we don't really send the archive requests to GitHub until Cypress tells us that things are good, because I really don't want to go off and archive a bunch of repositories that I didn't mean to archive, since undoing that is going to involve going through the web interface and undoing it, and that's going to be really gross. So don't want to do that. So I think there's some testing stuff that needs to happen before we get to that point. But we're close. I think we're close. So you are all awesome human beings. Thank you so much for your help. As always, it is greatly appreciated. I'm going to wrap up here, and then I'll do commits and things offline. I'll be back in 2 hours. So from 2 to 4 my time, working on System Lab stuff. We finished the Echo client server to my satisfaction last week. And so I think we're going to start something pretty weird. So we have a lab that involves the students write a client that talks to a UDP server, which then sends back a flurry of UDP packets that are parts of multiple files. So there are several files that are being sent, but the files are chopped up into pieces and put in UDP packets that come in basically random order. So we're not using TCP, so TCP doesn't reconstruct the files from the packets for us, and the students have to then get these packets, figure out what files they're assigned to, order them in the right order, and write the files to disk. And there's a lot of data structure stuff in that, as well as some networking stuff. And I think that would be really interesting to see what that client looks like in Rust, and decide whether that would be a reasonable project for them to do. So change right now that lab, they write that lab in Java, and writing it in Rust to see like, well, how, and they know Java coming in, so they're not having to learn a new language. So I want to see kind of, well, how complicated is the Rust side of that, and how much structure would we need to give them, and how much guidance. I think in the Java, we literally give them we give them a lot of text, but we don't give them much starter code on that one, if any, maybe none. But they're a lot more familiar with that language, so we'd have to think about what we're going to give them and how we would write that up. But first, we got to write the code. So I think that's what I'll start this afternoon. I think that's going to take several weeks to finish, because it's a pretty complicated thing, and I want to think about sort of how the Rust is going to play out there. So I think that's what we'll be starting in a couple of hours, and would certainly love to see people there. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a wonderful Saturday. And I guess I should say we'll have do we have this? I think we've got a standard week coming up. So Tuesday morning, no, actually, I take it back. I will not be here Tuesday morning. So the next scheduled time for ice-repos is not going to happen. I'll have to put that in Twitch, because I got a dental appointment. So I get to have my teeth cleaned. How exciting. And that's when they could do it. So it's going to happen then. So there will be no streaming Tuesday morning. We should be good Wednesday evening like normal, doing evolution computation. And then Saturday, and Saturday morning, because that's October 1st, I will not be here Saturday morning. So I'm going to miss 2 of the 4 streams this week. So the local climate network meeting, monthly meeting, is Saturday morning. So I'm going to be at that. All of Saturday isn't happening. Wow, this week really, I lied when I said it was going to be a normal week. So there's a local film festival, the Prairie Light Film Festival, that runs Friday through Thursday. So Friday the 30th of September through Thursday the 6th of October. And we will be going to a number of the films there, and some of those interfere with streaming. So actually all of Saturday is gone. That stinks. Bummer. But that's the way life will be. But I should be back Tuesday morning a week from now, and Wednesday night a week from now, because we don't have films on either of those nights. But I will update my calendar on Twitch And I will post something on Twitter and on the Discord. So those would be probably the easiest ways to keep track of what's going on. And here's the Discord invite link again, if you're interested. And I'll post the updated schedule there. And I had said I would be doing, because I was doing 2 streams a week over the summer, and I upped that to 4 streams a week in late August, and said I would continue that through September. And we're now near the end of September. So if you have thoughts about time of streams, number of streams, topics of streams, any of that kind of stuff, preferences, blah, 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 Twitter or Discord, would love to hear from folks. If nobody much cares, I think I'll keep doing what we're doing. I like the current setup. I'd like to get through ice-repos here at some point, so continuing to have 2 a week on that seems reasonable. And maybe it gets done sometime in October, although if we're missing both sessions this week coming up, maybe that won't happen. I don't know. But if it gets done in October, then we can sort of think about where we go there. But my inclination would be to keep this schedule for another month, so through October. But I am more than happy to hear suggestions or preferences to the contrary. So I will stop talking. I will actually end the stream, which I promised to do like 5 minutes ago. Faculty, we talk too much. Thank you again for being here. I will see everybody later, maybe in 2 hours. Talk to you later. Ciao.